Based on our preliminary evaluation of our SL results, Clifton Middle is going to not be accredited this upcoming year, which means that they would enter their fourth year of non-accreditation. So it looks like we're going to be right at 74% again, which is about 3 or 4 students not making it. So what happens is then Clifton Middle will be denied accreditation sometime in September or October when the results are fully counted. So what we have, all schools that after 3 years have got to participate in looking to be reconstituted. And so we've actually have till the 30th of June to put our application in. Now, reconstitution, and you should have everyone has a copy of it. I'll go through the background of what a reconstituted school is. This is the code that clarifies that after 3 years the school's got to apply. You have 2 choices: to be denied accreditation or to apply to be reconstituted. Reconstitution means simply this: there are 4 options to look at that when you develop your school improvement plan. One is you have to evaluate your instructional process to see what kind of changes that need to be made to move to full accreditation. The second is you could shift your students to another building. That has happened in some larger divisions and where you have 5 or 6 middle schools and you move your students. The third is you also could move your staff. You can shift your staff around. And again, sometimes in larger divisions that happens where they'll shift their staff around 3 or 4. The last thing is that you have to look at your leadership in the buildings. I kind of think for us, 2 of those are out. Moving students, kind of hard to bus them somewhere, and B, also moving the staff. So we're really looking at changing the instructional process, which we began this past year, and we were also looking at a change in leadership. One of the questions that came up during the conference with the Virginia Department of Education was that if you hired a brand new principal last year like we did, and they didn't make it, would that count as a change in leadership? And the answer was no. So we would have to possibly look for another leader in the building. So we're going through that process. Now certainly the board can make a decision on whether we want to apply to be reconstituted or not. It would be my recommendation that we put that application in. Now there's a caveat here, which is a very interesting caveat. I'll go down to this one slide here real quick. This one right here. If you take a look at this side, so if your scores in a subject are between 50 and 59, and you increase by 9 points, okay, you could be reconstituted. This is one of the requirements. If you were at 60 to 64 in English, and you improve by 3 points, then you would be you'd be reconstituted. If you're at, I'm sorry, I'm down the wrong one. If you're down here at 74, which is where we are in English, okay, and you improve 1 point, 74 plus 1 is 75, we would be fully accredited. So we're in that limbo area. Well, last year, Dr. Staples, any schools that were at 74 and stayed at 74, he did reconstitute, okay? And so we would not be eligible under the requirements, but we would ask Dr. Staples to waive that to reconstitute our school. And then at that point, the Department of Education would work very closely with us on ensuring that we cross that threshold the following year. And once we cross the threshold, which I think we've put the foundation in this past year, I think we'll get across that threshold. For us, the reading scores did improve this year. The writing scores did not. And so our area of focus for the school would be in writing. But I'll go back a little bit to the beginning here. If there's any questions, it discusses, if you go through the document, it discusses what does the different statuses mean. We'd have to develop an MOU with the Virginia Board of Education that we were going to make those changes. I provide a year with a time frame of when things need to be taken care of. The corrective action plan, which is your school improvement plan, which is been developed last year. And again, reconstitution means a process that may be used to initiate a range of accountability actions to improve pupil performance, curriculum, and instruction to address deficiencies that has caused the school to be related to accreditation denied. These actions may include, but are not limited to, restructuring school governance, which is leadership, change in instructional program, staffing, or student population. Like I said, these two for us are off limits, and so these other two we would have to deal with in our school improvement plan. Again, the local school board must initiate the request to be reconstituted, and then of course the following year would be partially accredited, a reconstituted school up for 3 years. After 3 years, if you haven't made it, then accreditation would be denied. Now keep in mind this, so 2018-19 school year, hopefully the Virginia Department of Education will adopt the new accreditation standards as well, so those could change as well. And we won't know that until probably this summer. And so you have to go through the eligibility rubric, which is what I was showing you. There's an application form we'd have to apply for. And this I thought was very interesting. Documentation required for a new principal with a proven Virginia track record of success in summer school. Documentation of the principal's years of experience as a Virginia principal. Documentation of how the previous school is similar to current school, demographic information, and documentation of data from previous schools, including standards of learning assessment. So you're looking for a principal who's been successful at their previous position as well, and that would play a critical role for us to apply to a reconstituted school.
Would the principal have to be in the same level?
Not necessarily. No, not at all.
So one of my concerns is the middle school as a whole.
Yes.
It seems to be a problem academically. Seem to have a lot of behavioral issues. I think we need to look at the idea of moving the students. The idea of why do we have a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade middle school? Personally, I would rather see us have these kids back in the elementary schools, 6th and 7th grade back in the elementary schools, 8th grade in high school. I personally don't think the middle school is a good thing. I know that it was built because a former superintendent thought that we really needed to have a traditional middle school. At that time, we just had an 8th grade was our middle school. But I think these smaller schools are what makes a smaller community successful. And I think we need to explore the idea of what all of our options are for the middle school, and if we did disperse these students, because we don't seem to have these problems. If we're not having them in our elementary schools, why are all of a sudden things happening when we get to the middle school? And why are we having these behavioral issues when we get to the middle school? I think they're all things we need to look at.
This is a normal trend in middle school. This is for whatever reason, whether at the elementary school create the problem or at the middle school create the problem. It's been a trend. It's not nothing new. It's been going on for a long time. We have had middle school accredited. I think we should look at the building, everything in the building, and see why we're not, what the students are not getting to be accredited. We look at a lot of things. Let's look at all the data and see where the issues are. Is it a personnel issue? Is it the size of the building issue? Is it? And I don't have a problem putting kids back in the elementary schools because we did that before. But students today are different. It's kind of like you said that time with Santa Claus and other things getting mixed on the bus. Well, that's what kind of happens at the lower level in the grades when you got 7th graders back in elementary school.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a big difference between a 6th grader and an 8th grader as far as mental and physical maturity, and that's something that I think we should definitely pay attention to. A 6th grader on the bus with 12th graders, that's they're definitely different people. I think it's something we really need to dig into and figure out, because we've had all these chances to change things academically. We've had a change in leadership multiple times. but there's something that we're just not, something that's not clicking there. You know, that's one of the reasons these schools closed is because they didn't have the 6th and 7th grade in them. You know, we took kids out of these schools and we decreased the population of our small schools that were very successful, our small elementary schools, and I don't know, I think we need to explore all possibilities.
Yeah, that's true. The thing with trying to open a building back up is, do you have the money? And we don't have the money to open any building back, much as we would like to. When you look at all, open every
Well, I
school
mean,
back up, still.
but we need to look at our buildings as a whole and have you know,
Space utilization.
a space utilization, but also just the idea of taking all of our buildings and putting them all out there and saying, this is what our options are. You know, the high school, we've spent money, we keep spending money. You know, the middle school, we've got money that we need to spend there. You know, something isn't working quite right. And, you know, our Mountain View Elementary is the biggest school, you know, that we have, and I don't know that that's necessarily a good thing for our elementary school kids to be sending them to this large school. You know, it's one thing when you're high school and you can adapt to those things. I think it's a little different when you're a young kid, and I would just like to see us look at all possibilities.
My thoughts going forward is what we currently have is not the structure's not working, okay? Because I've seen some improvements over at Clifton Middle. The schedule's going to be reorganized. We had you put middle school students in a 95-minute block all year long in English or all year long in math. It's hard for a middle school student to be there. With the change of schedule going to 6 period days, one of the big changes. It'll allow those students to investigate into a lot of different electives, as well as a remediation block that'll help those kids who are struggling, and with an enrichment block to provide some programs for those kids. The change, we've had only one change in leadership at Clifton Middle. Ms. Seipel has been there for 16 years. Ms. Crandall came in last year and has started to build the foundation, and our anticipation with the new principal coming in is to continue that. Now, if that's not successful, and the staff in the middle school principal would come back and say, let's look at something different, then I might be all in favor of looking at. The middle school, a lot of educational debate across the country about the middle school philosophy, but I'd be willing to say probably 95% of all schools in that age group are middle schools across the Commonwealth, and that's how the accreditation process has been developed over a period of years as well. So I would ask the board to allow us to go that one additional year because of how close we are, and to get over there, to be able to get over the top of that. We will also be looking down the road with the high school remake. Some classes that were what's the high school will now slide down to the middle school, even as far as 7th grade, and now how that will pan out with the Department of Education. So I would caution us to make too rapid changes. Give it a year of study. Let us get through this upcoming year. The focus on reading definitely worked, and now with the focus on writing. Part of that, I think, with the writing scores is when Virginia dropped the SOL from being a state test to be a local test, and make sure that we're looking at that information in 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th grade. So when they take writing in 8th grade, they're well prepared. And we have to stop looking at writing and reading 1 year at a time. It's not like you have Algebra 1 or Science where it's an end of course test. It's lifelong skills. At the elementary, at K through 3, we're looking at what we call personalized learning and reading and writing and basic math, so that kids will move at the level that they are performing. And so I believe, talking to the staff, we spent a lot of time with 3 or 4 staff members this past couple of weeks, that there's a good outlook for it.
I really believe, based on my personal experience, that the middle school piece, I think it has made it is better than it was. Okay, and just when
what I've seen. You know, I've got a child that's been through the system. And I think I told you last meeting that we had, I've seen improvement there that was not there before. So I think there are some things that are working. I don't think it's perfect, but I think we need to give it a chance. And I've heard from some teachers that are in the middle school, I think that everybody's okay with the direction. I know there's some concern about leadership for the future, but I haven't had anybody say that they're going the wrong direction. Not that I've heard. I don't know if you've heard anything.